Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of HRM Council Pakistan, I'm grateful to all of you for your virtual presence here for today's HRM Dialogue. HRM Council, we started around 4 years back. This is a virtual group. And since last 2 years, this is a very vibrant group, very productive group. Earlier, when we started this group, this was a loose group sort of thing. This was sort of formal group. But we engage many corporate leaders, many HR practitioners, many trainers, especially from the learning and development field, from the HR field, from the consulting side. But in the last 2 years, we implemented the rules and regulations strictly, and we also expanded the size of this council. We created a council, the managing committee, for managing this whole HRM council. We hosted a few physical sessions as well, and we were facing some issues for hosting the physical sessions because of the costings and everything, because our parent organization, Corporate Pakistan Group, is hyperactive and they are hosting monthly sessions and get-togethers in Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad, and Dubai. So thanks to digital, and this is a positive side for this lockdown, that we are now starting the virtual sessions. Earlier, we planned the same session before the Ramzan, but there were too much happening in the last week. So we decided to host in the mid of Ramzan. So this is our first session, and our managing committee decided to host the series of several dialogues and several solo sessions on multiple issues related to HR, management, and leadership. So I'm grateful to all the members of HRM Council, and I'm also very grateful to the managing committee members. There are 10 managing committee members. I want to acknowledge all of them. Two are from Lahore, Fatima Asad-Said, who is our panelist today from ABACUS Consulting. One of our another very outstanding member is Gule Mariam Bhattu. She is educationist, and she is the member of National Curriculum Council of Ministry of Education in Islamabad. She is based in Lahore. From Islamabad, we have with us Shiraz Kareem of S&P Global, and Tahira Khatak, who is our very dear friend, and she is co-moderator with Ashaar today. She is from Telenor, so she is part of the managing committee. From Peshawar, we especially engage a young girl who is outstanding entrepreneur and very outstanding activist, Mariam Arshad. So we especially engage her for the managing committee, and she is the youngest in the whole HRM council, and she is doing amazing work in multiple avenues as far as her, in addition to her contribution for this HRM council. From Karachi, Saeed he is the moderator. He's our very old friend, where so he is the managing committee member, and our very senior person, our elder, our brother Irfan Ali Haider. He is now a board member. He served his career in Shell and different other companies, and he's from Karachi. From Dubai, we have two members, Ali Rizvi of GSK and Shahrukh Masood. So this is the overall committee. I'm the founder of this HRM council. So I'm grateful to all the council members. I'm also grateful to my team on, in nutshell, Alena, Tufail, Kashif, Faisal, and Kazi Wakas also. So today's topic is, I think, need of the hour, and we decided to engage 5 different panelists, and I think all of them are most appropriate with this topic. First, we engaged Sabir Sami and other companies. Fatima Asad is one of the outstanding persons on this for this topic, and she's working for ABACUS Consulting. She's the managing director, and she is also the trustee of Lahore University of Management Sciences, LUMS. We also engage one of the seasoned professional in HR, Nael Islam. He's our HRM Council member as well. And he is now based in Singapore, working for Enterprise Singapore, but his international experience in multiple organizations and multiple countries is really commendable. So he is one of the finest HR professionals in the region, and we are lucky to have Nael with us today. And another one of my favorites, she's my sister also, one of the biggest inspiration, Dr. Sadia Nadeem, a really accomplished HR professional. She's professor, and her passion is research and everything. And after engagement of all these four outstanding individuals, we decided, and we discussed, our managing committee discussed that who should be from the local industry, a real big company who is untold story as well. So there was no other better person than Musadaq Zulqarnain from Interloop. Interloop is really doing amazing work. And I think that in the corporate sector, many of us are not aware about their overall working and overall details of this company. So we especially decided to engage him. And I'm grateful to Musadaq Saab to be with us today. And Ashaar-Said, who recently joined Kia Lucky Motors as Chief People Officer. He's our today's moderator, while Tahira is the backup moderator from Telenor. So without any further delay, I want to hand over the proceedings till the end to my friend Ashaar-Said. Ashaar, over to you.
Thank you very much, Asfar. Assalamu alaikum, and very good afternoon, good morning, and good evening as well, because we are being joined from all over the world right now. To everyone, and especially to my panelists, esteemed panelists, what a stellar lineup we have today. A very warm welcome to all of you who have joined, and all of you who are our panelists on to this very first digital dialogue on the platform of HRM Council of Pakistan. I would have introduced the panelists, but Asfar has given a good opening and a good introduction to our esteemed panelists today. So once I come over to each panelist, I'll give a very short introduction before they go to their talk. Ladies and gentlemen, we are passing through pandemic times. These are very unique times. These are very challenging times as well. These are very unnerving times also. But at the same time, these times have certain implications for all of us on both personal as well as professional front. Our focus today will be professional and business world. Even in professional world, we have innumerable aspects, and that's why we decided to navigate through this new reality, focused on the human factor and focused on the challenges which are being posed to the business. Our today's discussion will be with this focus on people and human factor, and then the repercussions and consequences for the business. We will talk more about, and our panelists will talk more about, how people are impacted, what is the consequence of working from home, both positive as well as negative, how is the bottom line of businesses is getting impacted, what ideas can we come up with, what discussion can we generate where we can handle this crisis situation, this new challenge in a more amicable and a more productive fashion. So that is the context which we wanted to set up for this session. Our speakers, our panelists will be throwing light on this new reality and how do we best navigate through it. What are the challenges they are facing in their organizations? What are the challenges they are facing in terms of thinking about post-COVID-19 situation? So all that, obviously, all my panelists will pick up one thought and one idea which they have come across, which they have experienced, and which they are planning for and will share with us. So keeping in view this context, I'll move forward to the discussion, and I'll invite my first panelist, Ms. Fatima Asad-Said. She is Managing Director of Corporate Governance and People Solutions of ABACUS Consulting, which is one of the leading management consultants of Pakistan. Ms. Fatima.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum, and good morning, good afternoon to everyone. It's a pleasure to be part of such a stellar group and look forward to great learning as we proceed. So essentially what I would like to focus on, and thank you for Ashaar, that amazing introduction as well. There are three aspects. When we went into this crisis 6 weeks to 8 weeks ago, depending on where you are in the world, the first aspect was the crisis mode. What do we do now? How do we navigate through, one, the health crisis, and then the next aspect is the economic impact. What are the challenges that are facing organizations? What are the challenges that are facing people who obviously work within certain organizations, or obviously individuals who are working on their own as well, across sectors, across industries. The other aspect was to focus on people practices in these unprecedented times. This is something that no one was prepared for. So how organizations responded, how individuals responded was also a new reality for everyone. Some of us are still trying to navigate through it from an emotional well-being perspective. Some of us have taken stock of that and taken some action towards it. And the third aspect is proactively defining the new normal. What does it mean for all of us as we emerge or continue to emerge through this particular crisis? So as we all know, from navigating the economic impact, it is very important to balance out two aspects. One is the public health emergency, and the second aspect is the global economic and, of course, at a national level, the economic crisis that we're facing. We, at this point in time, do not know how long this will last. It could fizzle out over the next couple of quarters, or it could continue well into 2021, if not beyond, because everything, as we all know, we've been studying, we've been watching the media and having discussions on the access to a vaccine, which will allow us to manage this situation. But from a GDP perspective, from an unemployment perspective, at this point in time, the figures are not looking very positive. And that needs to be kept in mind as we strategize for the next quarters. We also see within Asia Pacific, there are two countries, I believe China and Taiwan, which are indicating positive GDP growth at this point in time. All other countries are unfortunately have indicated a negative for at least 2020, and with sharp increases in unemployment. Now, with that very quick background, because we're not delving too much into the macroeconomic scenario at this point in time, we look at what are the people practices? How have organizations responded? For us at ABACUS, our first two primary challenges and focus was the well-being of our people and then business continuity. As soon as there was a lockdown, or even before that, when news was emerging over the world that this is going to become quite a pandemic, and then the lockdown happened in Pakistan, the board at the governance level had their first meeting and said, what do we focus on? What announcements are we making? What notifications are we sending out to our people? Because we must safeguard them. We must give them a sense of confidence and, as much as possible, some kind of relief from this crisis and uncertain times. In these two aspects, when we look at people practices, we also wanted to find out that how are other organizations responding. And interestingly enough, over the last few weeks, where we had also reached out to our clients to understand how they navigated through the people challenges in their respective organization, there was some good news that has emerged. One, in terms of a hiring freeze, while 60% of the organizations that participated, there were 40% who were indicating we are continuing with our recruitment process. Because there is a diverse representation from technology to telecom to FMCGs to pharmaceutical companies, some industries are well placed to take on the challenges right now, and therefore their businesses continue to run, even if there is a short-term impact at this point in time. As we all know, there are certain industries on the other end of the spectrum, and they are struggling at this point in time, the aviation, the tourism, etc. And they will take a bit more time to recover. So you see hiring still taking place, even though there is a transition to virtual onboarding, virtual meetings, specifically like this one as well. So organizations very quickly, where they had the infrastructure, navigated to taking things on a remote basis, going online, making sure they had the infrastructure to access not only their people, but also their customers and clients, giving that assurance that they were there, and coming up with new ways of doing business. this indication of also the other aspect was, do we hang on to our people? Is it about downsizing and cutting cost, or is it about seeing and riding this wave that we're going through? At this point in time, we feel that a larger percentage of organizations, 60% at least in Pakistan, have continued with the same headcount. Now, we must keep in mind it is an evolving situation. This may continue with the relief packages that the government has provided and other support mechanisms that are coming up on a continuous basis. This will take us to June, perhaps into July. But post that, we feel that I feel that it is very important to put in mitigating frameworks from a risk perspective and say, how do we manage our people beyond July? So this is some of the practices that have emerged over the last 6 to 8 weeks. And it is important to keep in mind to focus on the positive and good activity that has emerged despite the situation that we face. We are still in a very cautious mode. We continue to work from home to a larger, even though essential services have gone into work. So this takes my conversation into how do we define the new normal? What are the aspects that we should be really looking at as an organization? And to keep as Ashaar has also mentioned, keep it focused so that we have room for thought and perspectives from everyone else on the panel. I will just mention four main factors. I feel the first one, which is extremely important, is proactive communication. In order to maintain business continuity, if there is regular communication, not only within teams, but starting at the board level, connecting with the senior executive leadership, and then the senior executive leadership communicating regularly with different levels within their organization, that allows a sense of normal routine, even though we have transited into a new way of doing business. It also gives a sense of confidence and some kind of relief to our people that we are in touch with what is happening. We're here, we're taking care of you, we're putting in certain aspects which are important. The SOPs for the safety of your people, also being mindful in terms of awareness sessions, because we're all in this together. So that's extremely important. The other aspect is to focus on supporting employees' health issues and emotional / mental well-being as well. We all have a different way of responding as human beings. Some of us go into the freeze mode for longer than others. So we have to help each other in order to ensure how we navigate through that psychological pressure. Some of us have the good fortune to be with our families. Some of us are at remote locations where we don't have access. Maybe some of us have struggled through the COVID virus as well and are emerging successfully through that as well. So emotional well-being and mental well-being becomes extremely important, and organizations must give that support on a timely basis, either through technology, through linking up to good healthcare facilities and infrastructure, and just general awareness and orientation of how do you take care of yourself. The third aspect is, of course, flexible work arrangements. What everyone in the world is talking about is work from home. And organizations have transited into that particular situation to ensure business continues uninterrupted, even though organizations which had manufacturing facilities or have manufacturing facilities have either shut down or continue to be in shutdown mode. At the same time, with business going online, there are challenges of productivity, there are challenges of data security and technology infrastructure. However, because we are connected, we can brainstorm new ways of doing business in order to redesign supply chains, redefine supply chains, and also look at the capability that we have within so there is a greater involvement and engagement of our people. The last aspect is ensuring that people stay engaged and productive. That's extremely important. And there's a three-pronged strategy for that in terms of leveraging resources, collaboration, and of course, through technology. If we allow and we give a clear directive to our people, and that is what we are doing at ABACUS, to ensure that they embrace the flexible schedule on a long-term basis. I foresee this going on for the next couple of quarters as well, and work from home becoming a part of the policy and not a temporary arrangement, but also equipping the managers and leadership to how do you navigate, how do you address your people, how do you understand that you can still be productive. And we've seen that within our own organization, that productivity in some cases have gone up because there is a greater work-life balance. People are spending more time with their families, yet they have navigated very successfully and understood that we can work through this new normal and contribute and come up with innovative ideas. And lastly, a sense of community. Because we are all in this together, it is important for us to keep the faith, balance empathy and economic decisions, but also be there for each other. So it is extremely important that while we manage our crisis, we put down risk management frameworks to mitigate these four aspects of proactive communication, of supporting employee emotional and mental and health well-being, flexible work arrangements, and ensuring employees stay engaged and productive are the most important aspects. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fatima. Wow, I mean, what a comprehensive cover-up and of the whole new reality that we are speaking about. Right from that macro level, you spoke about from public health, the striking balance between public health and economic crisis, and that at company and organizational level, striking a balance between well-being of people and business continuity, and then the four-pronged strategy. Wonderful, thank you so much. Now we move to our next panelist, Mr. Nael Islam, Regional Director for Enterprise Singapore. And over to you, Nael.
Thank you, Ashaar. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me on this panel today. We are discussing as navigating to a new reality, the human factor. Whether it's the new reality or the new normal, I'd really like us to take a step back to December 2019, and also further back to 2009, 2003, and let's go even further back to 1918. What's the significance of these dates? 2019 was life as we knew it. 2009 was the global financial crisis, which was caused by deregulation in the financial industry and human greed. 2003 was SARS. 8 months from the first case coming to light to full containment. Now, that was 8,000 people infected with close to a 10% mortality rate. 1918 was the Spanish flu. That took 15 months, 500 million people infected, and by some estimates, about 100 million people dead. All of these events, for the period that they lasted, essentially resulted in panic, changes in immediate behavior, and promises of a changed behavior. This is important, the promises of ongoing changed behavior. And both the global financial crisis and the Spanish flu had far-reaching impact on people's lives and livelihoods that are being felt even today. So really, what would really change? And that's what we talk about when we talk about the new normal, right? And I don't mean now with the multitude of policies, rules, and regulations, but say in 6 months to 24 months, when living with COVID-19 becomes accepted, when we start developing immunity from the virus and a vaccine has been developed. The reality is that, like the flu, this too will remain. People will continue to get infected and we will see deaths, but we will live with it. I'd like to start first by discussing possible practices, a benchmark of excellence for businesses, even beyond COVID-19. And for the purposes of this discussion, I'll stick to Pakistan. Working from home, I mean, we were going to be banding around these terms throughout this discussion and for the next however many more months or years. But who does this really apply to? What percentage of our population has the capacity, the ability, the environment, or the tools for that matter that would allow them to do it? For those that do, telework will become an accepted part of our working lives. Organizations and managers that live by the mantra that flexible working arrangements were not possible, that remote connections do not allow for focus, performance, and delivery, et cetera, have been proven wrong in the most damning way. Nevertheless, I still do not see this becoming the norm. The need for face-to-face, person-to-person interactions will remain. But the excuses for not allowing employees to work from home have been thrown out the window. This is a huge win for the likes of parents with young children, resulting in increased time spent with the family and a lowering of expenses, for example, related to hiring for childcare. Fatima also talked about this a little bit. It also is a big win for employees who do not have easy access to transport or waste hours on commuting. Those that may be physically or challenged or marginally sick, they won't need to go into the doctor unnecessarily or forcibly come into the office and make other people sick. Then we have this physical or social distancing. Pakistan is the fifth largest country in the world with a population of over 200 million people and a population density of 281 inhabitants per square kilometer. Now that may not look so bad, especially with 50th on the list, by the way, it may not look so bad if you're sitting in rural Punjab or the Sindh or Balochistan for that matter. But let's get a bit more focused. Let's talk about Karachi. Seventh largest city in the world. In fact, it is classified as what's known as a beta global city, with a population of 25 million people approximately and a population density, and this is important, of 24,000 people, inhabitants per square kilometer. In fact, in terms of density, for cities above 10 million people, Karachi is number 3 on the list after Dhaka and Mumbai. Let's be clear that that 24,000 number that I just mentioned is an average number. So this includes, if you're living in phase 8, for example, in defense, you don't even know who your neighbors are. Versus if you're living in Orangi, largest slum in the world, your neighbors are living in the same dwelling as you. For large parts of our population, physical distancing is not practical, let alone the cultural and social elements that come into play. We're going to no hugging at Eid, as an example, and we are one of only 2 countries in the world that did not shut down mosques when Corona hit. You may be sitting there and saying, yes, thanks for the background and statistics, Nael, but what do we do? There are countless ways that we could change. And this is going to require you, me, it's going to require the governments, it's going to require NGOs, it's going to require the private sector, all of us to come together and take long, hard look at this and make certain commitments and decisions. None of these are going to necessarily be easy. They're not going to be short term. And these will include minimally the following. We're going to have to invest in public healthcare and education. We're going to have to look at bringing down defense spending, invest in telecommunications infrastructure, which in turn increases access to affordability and digital connectivity on both the broadband and the hardware side. We have to find ways to balance economic needs with safe social distancing measures and working from home. We're spending millions and millions and millions on handouts without even the basic understanding of what comes next. As a poor country, can we afford this? Can we afford it long term? That's a question to ask. Lastly, sort of build the infrastructure for utilities such as waste management, sewage systems, water security. What's the point of sitting here talking about washing hands when you don't even have water to drink? There'll be a lot of short-term pain, and in the end, I mean, this is how I will conclude. There will be a lot of short-term pain, but if we do not start looking at this in the right context, the new reality will really be not much different than the old reality. We've got to learn from the mistakes that we've had over 70 odd years. We've got to learn from things that have been done right in other countries, both in developing countries and developed countries. And we need to really make a very, very strong commitment to getting it right going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nael. Thank you very much. You have given an entirely new perspective to the discussion, and thinking about it in a manner that we don't find it really disruptive, thinking about it in a manner that we come to terms with it in a more bold and courageous way. I think that's a great perspective to share with the audience today. I will move on to our third panelist, and I'll request Mr. Musadaq Zulqarnain, Chairman of Interloop Limited. And as Asfar added in his introduction, that Interloop is a huge success story, an untold one in many ways, not entirely, but definitely a case study which can be taught at business schools. I hand it over to Mr. Musadaq Zulqarnain.
Thank you, Ashaar, and Assalamu alaikum, and hello to everybody. It is obviously a very interesting topic, and one which we can spend hours discussing things, and I think both Nael and Fatima had thrown some light. I think to put it again in the correct perspective, we have not seen anything like this for at least, I would say, never. If you read the headlines today, in hundreds of years, you have not seen the type of recession we might be heading into. So, according to McKinsey's study about US and the Western economies, if to contain the pandemic, you put in the lockdowns, which are in practice in various places, and depending upon the length of the lockdowns and the extent of lockdowns, they have, for example, predicted that if in US you have a 50% lockdown for a month, and then a 25% lockdown for another month, that would result in a recession and in a contraction of 6.5%. But if you increase that lockdown to 25% for another month, the contraction will go to 10%. So the 2008, 2009, the contraction was 4.5%. Now you can imagine that this contraction, which is coming our way, is going to dwarf the past economic contraction. And for countries like Pakistan, where there are very limited resources, and to some extent, because of that, we are also confused. We don't know what to do, because we, as very rightly pointed out, we have a large section of population which cannot be locked down. They are already, there can be no social distancing, and there's not enough food for them. So what to do? So keeping this in perspective for us to see, obviously we hear the panelists and the audience, we come from various type of companies. There are service companies, there could be companies from the retail sector, there could be manufacturing companies, small, big, different sizes. I come from a sector where we employ thousands of employees. For example, Interloop in Pakistan employs 23,000 people. And the biggest worry we have is how to provide for their livelihoods and for how long. So what the leadership has to do is that we have to, first of all, I think, put everything in perspective and create a plan, create a long-term plan. We can't, we know it's things we don't know how the future is going to shape, but I think we have some idea. So we have to put a plan together. For a person like me, who firmly believes that for any type of an organization, the biggest strength of that organization is its people, whether it's a service-oriented organization, whether it's a white-collar employment only, or it has a both combination of white and blue collar. I think it's the people which make the organizations different. So that this demands that the first responsibility on us is to look after our people. And I think Fatima very rightly pointed out various things. So first of all, we have to devise a policy, and then we have to, create a narrative which is consistent at various levels of the leadership. Because what this pandemic is doing is that people are confused, and they are confused on both ends. Some are taking it too easy, and some are obviously psychologically too much affected. Somebody might have lost somebody in their family or somebody they know. So they're both end of the spectrum where we have to deal with. And we have to also educate the people that they shouldn't take it too easy. I've seen people who just take it normal, taking just like another flu. When the governor of province says it's just another flu, and his test again comes back positive, and then he gets worried, I think there is a lot of confusion amongst the people, and genuinely, and I don't think it's people are confused what type of things. So I think that needs that we need create a narrative which is consistent company wide at different levels of leadership. We have a narrative which is based on truth. We should not hide the truth from the people, but then we should also create hope. And we have to this is the time when the companies and their values will be tested. Most of our companies, we put on our websites, on our literature, a big core show about our missions and our core values. These times like these are when our core values will be tested. And I think for the top leadership, it is very important now that we give more importance to the stakeholder value rather than just the shareholder value of the companies. I completely understand that both the solvency of the company and the livelihood of our people has to go hand in hand. But I think we have to have some compassion for our people. We have to see how much losses we can take if we have to take, and we should continue providing for the livelihoods for our people. And for that, I think we have to work together. We have to create a truthful narrative for our people. We have to communicate with them, as Fatima very rightly pointed out, increase the level of communication. I think what we have learned out of this crisis, which is ongoing, and as Nael also pointed out, that we for like company like ours, we had officially all the Microsoft Teams and everything, but we seldom used it. We were more used to and more comfortable with physical meetings. And I think now what I find is that it's much more effective to actually digitally communicate with each other. It's much more effective. It's cost effective. It saves a lot of time, saves a lot of energy. And so actually we have learned that we can communicate much faster, much deeper using the digital communication means we have. So if we don't have, the companies which don't have enough digital means, I think they have to invest in that. And we have to take everybody along. We have to create an employee buy-in. As Fatima also said, we have to, for companies like us whose main business, for our main company, the main business is manufacturing. We have a logistics company for which the work is going on normal. We have a dairies company. We can't shut down the cows. It has to come on. The milk has to go on. That's working. But the main manufacturing concern for apparel, you have to come to work if you want to work. But there will be new normals. If we want to follow the SOPs, and even if there are no SOPs, if we are really concerned about the well-being and health and safety of our employees, we'll have to change the way we work in operations. We have to be more innovative, because if we're using transport, we can only bring let's say 50% of people in the same transport. The transport costs are going to go up. The production efficiencies will have to go up to match. So it's an opportunity also to train our people, to invest into more into their efficiency, so that we stay competitive. The countries which have controlled this pandemic quickly and have not shut down have been able to work. What I'm seeing on the surveys is that the international global community is more you see, tempted to go there and increase their business in those countries like Vietnam and entire Southeast Asia. We are seeing that even whether it's services, whether it is manufacturing, the customers, they want to increase their business there even post pandemic. So we'll have to come up very fast. A country where we have a huge workforce, we have to come up very fast with ways and means to train our people to stay competitive. Our governments is trying their best. Our central bank especially is very proactive, trying to, you see, help out the businesses to stay solvent, but they have a limited, obviously, fiscal space. And this entire pandemic is going to cost the overall tax revenues of the government also. So we can't really only rely on the government to continue. So I think I will re-emphasize what the previous panelists have said, that we have to look at the infrastructure of the country in the long run to see how we can improve that. But within staying in our organizations, we must communicate the truth, but communicate our plan, and we should take everybody along. We should have empathy in our communication. The way we treat our people, we have to now bring in more compassion to see the psychological aspects of our employees, because they must be going through a lot of tension at their homes, lot of problems at their homes. So we have to look into that. We can't leave them to, you see, handle those things and still expect that they'll perform better. And again, I think it has provided us an opportunity to see, even if when the conditions go back to normal, how many of these white collar employees we can let them. In fact, we can ask them to work from home rather than let them. We should ask them and cut down on the costs and improve on the efficiency. I think that can be done. And I think these are the things which we must look into. And for countries like Pakistan, it's even more important to, you see, plan and, you see how we can provide for our employees for the livelihood for a long term and stay solvent, because it's not going to go away in 2 or 3 months. It's going to be a few quarters if we are lucky, or maybe a year or two. I think with that I'll end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Musadaq. This is the time when the values of organizations will be tested. I love that. And then striking a balance once again between solvency of the business and livelihood of people driven by compassion. I think that's what businesses should be doing, and removing confusion, coming up with a plan. I think that was wonderful coverage of the subject for the benefit of all. Thank you so much. Now I move towards my next panelist, Mr. Sabir Sami. Mr. Sabir Sami, to say the least, has had a distinguished career so far over 25 years. He has worked across the continents, has worked some of the top names like P&G, Reckitt Benckiser, KFC and Yum brands. Has been working at various geographies, and currently he's Global Chief Operating Officer of KFC and Managing Director for Asia. Over to you, Sabir.
Thank you, Ashaar. Assalamu alaikum to everybody, and I hope everyone is staying well and safe in these difficult times. It's a bit hard to speak about these circumstances in general because every country is at a different stage of the crisis, and the impact that is having varies a lot on the economic, political, and the infrastructure capabilities of each market. But I agree with my previous panelists as well. It is very uncertain times, but the need to lean in on an emotional basis is really what the priority has to be for everybody at this point in time. The impact of this COVID-19 has affected every aspect of our life in industry, and things that we knew as the normal is no longer relevant. And whether it's political, social, economic school of thoughts are all being challenged the way we know life is in the past. And the impact on the workplace is no different. The responsibility and obligations of the employer towards the employee is being challenged, and the concept of this 9-to-5 work-hour shift, which I think is a long outdated concept in any case, because it's rooted in the 19th century industrial revolution. With today's technology and the demand that people have for better work-life balance, I think in this concept, in today's world, at least for our white-collar employees, And 9 to 5 is an irrelevant kind of outdated concept, and this is going to accelerate the change that should have been there for many, many years. And as businesses reopen in those markets that the crisis has peaked, as Fatima says, in Taiwan and China, where we have significant businesses, and even in Canada, where I'm based here, where, the governments are saying, okay, let's start reopening businesses. Employees are now are challenging their companies, and they're asking the labor lawyers, am I obligated to go to work? Do I want to risk my family and my loved ones? And what are my obligations to go back to work? So it's an interesting dynamic how the shift is taking place between the employer and the employee, and what obligations does the employer have to provide safe working environments. And as societies undergo this uncertainty, the anxieties related to health and financial security is really bringing this concept of trust to the forefront. And we are seeing this as a big insight globally. People are asking themselves, who do I trust? Which leaders do I trust? Is the doctor more relevant than the politician? And who do I really believe in? Because the agendas are really different. Which business leader do I trust? And then in our business, we also say, which brands do I trust? And trust has both this rational and emotional basis. And today's world, with this fake news, self-serving agendas, and corporate greed, gaining and maintaining trust is both critical and challenging for us. And I think for us as leaders and managers of people, the question is, what trust bank and equity do we have with our employees and with our teams, that they are willing to do what we want them to do, but they also feel that we will take care of them and provide for them. And therefore, I think as people seek assurance in this uncertain world, leaders in the corporate world really need to think about the balance between intellectual leadership and what I call humanistic leadership. Historically, people with intellectual leadership have been successful, and we kind of reward intellectual leadership because it's linked to share price gains and profitability and so forth. And I absolutely agree with all the past speakers that, this COVID-19 has really brought up front the importance of people, and those companies and employers who did not really recognize the value of people have now certainly woken up to this harsh reality. And leaders who fail to genuinely demonstrate empathy and compassion, I think they will struggle, because employees are seeking comfort and assurance. And if you don't know how to do that and how to lean in and support people, I think these are the managers who will not get trust and support. And managers would like to manage through time and not through productivity and output will struggle, because this work from home environment is creating a new dynamic where the manager likes to see his subordinate working at his desk across from his office. He can no longer do that. So now the trust is going both other way direction as well. You need to trust your employees that they're at their homes and they're creating output. So if you were not a strong delegator based on trust, and that you could not empathetically support your employees to deliver results, I think this working from home concept is going to challenge them. Before people said, you need to turn up or work on time. How do you know your employee is on time at 9 to 5? Because you're sitting at home and you have no idea. So this minute by minute supervision, again, is a new dynamic that I think many managers are learning. And so I think if you are unable to connect with your employees through technology, you will struggle. And employees are having issues of job security, health security, stress, and mental anxiety. And I think it's really, really important that we need to create a virtual space of comfort and safety. So how do you do that, and how do you leverage technology to lean into people and support them is becoming critically important. For us at KFC, we have to react very quickly because we didn't close down. We have around 25,000 outlets around the world in over 140 countries. And pretty much most of them continue to operate. But the challenge for us is that we have over 1 million employees globally who continue to commute and travel to work and engage with the public and risking themselves and their lives. So we've had to change our operating standards literally within less than a week to make sure that their work environment is safe, that they feel emotionally, physically, mentally, and financially supported. And that has been our first priority, to make sure we take care of people. I think as Musadaq said, for us, people are the only asset. I mean, businesses and brands will recover, but if we lose our people, we will never recover. And aside from the business recovery side, I think for us, it's a moral obligation is the way we look at it. This is not about corporate financial responsibility. This is the right thing to do. And if you come from that value-based decision-making, then I think decisions become easier to do. Then you don't really have this challenge of what's the right thing to do. I think it's really difficult to predict what this post-COVID world will look like, since modern society has really not experienced anything similar, at least to our lifetime. So, but we are, from my perspective, I think there are three trends that we're looking at. One is the value of people. Is the CEO far less important than the merchandiser who's filling the shelf, than the truck driver who's delivering the food to the stores? Is the nurse more important than the Prime Minister of the UK who saved his life? Who's risking herself? And so the question is, as a society, who do we value, and how do we reward these people? And I hope that societies change their mindset towards this. The second one is technology. I think, as Nael said, these people are embracing technology like no tomorrow. So it's being adopted and being embraced, and people are finding, oh my God, this actually works. So I think those businesses that did not or will not invest in technology will fail to be relevant in the future. And this has just accelerated the change and the adoption of technology. And the third one is trust. If you don't support me through the crisis, then I do not engage with you afterwards. If you betrayed my trust, I'm sorry. So we are seeing trust levels operate differently across the world, and we're measuring it very carefully to understand what do consumers trust and how our employees trust. And if we're losing the trust, we think that is long-term equity loss forever, and it's very difficult. It takes years to build trust and then one decision to lose it. So therefore, every decision is absolutely critical. Unfortunately, I agree with Musadaq. The recovery from this will be long and painful because the human and the economic losses are huge. And many, many people have huge emotional trauma, loved ones, family. I think family, government, and businesses have been crippled, and it'll take time and a lot of deep thinking. My personal only hope is that, and I think hopefully that we as human beings realize that for each of us to prosper and be healthy, all of us need to prosper and be healthy. That to me is the essence of hope, that we as society, as a race, perhaps learn this, because something good has to come out of this, unfortunately. Otherwise, why did it happen? And that's my firm belief and hope. And inshallah, that's really what will happen. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sabir. Thank you very much. And it takes years to gain trust and one decision to lose it. That's so true. And these are the best of times to develop this trust, which can be so beneficial and so fruitful for the years to come, whether we talk about business or otherwise. And then that amazing, I would say, words you said about intellectual leadership and humanistic leadership. I think that is the essence if we want to improve upon this corporate world in which all of us have been working for our lifetimes. Thank you so much for those words. And I'll move towards my last panelist, Dr. Sadia Nadeem, Dean of School of Management, past School of Management Sciences. Over to you, Dr. Sadia.
Thank you, Ashaar, and Assalamu alaikum, everyone. It's a pleasure being here today, and I would like to thank Ashaar and his team for inviting me over to this topic, for a discussion on this topic. My esteemed panelists have covered a lot of points, some very useful points, some very thought-provoking points, and I would like to add to that discussion. I'll try to add to that discussion. The topic that we're discussing today is navigating to a new reality. I like the topic, and I love the word navigating, which has been used in it. To me, navigating means that we have to find a way to in a new direction. And to me, it also means that either we are going to think about it, plan about it, and be either a navigator or be in the driving seat, or somebody else is actually going to decide where this journey is going to take us. So the choice of the word navigating itself is something which we all need to reflect upon. And I will focus my discussion more on this navigating to a new reality side. Overall, change is happening, change is taking place, change has always been taking place. But this jolt, this current jolt, the unprecedented jolt that has shaken the world, the direction from which we go this point onwards will depend on some decisions that we take today and the next few months. So last night, Ashaar, after you initiated some discussion, I was thinking of what are the main decisions that we need to take in order to find the path, the options that we can have on taking one path or another path. And well, I thought of 17 decision points. And then I thought if I talk of 17 decision points, I think the audience would fall asleep and my moderator would not approve of that. So I've reduced that down to 3.5 points. 3.5 points I'm going to talk about. And I'm keeping the human factor and the HR fraternity being the main audience while I shortlisted from the 17 to the 3.5. To start with, I would like each one of you to think of the decisions that we are going to take about what we will take forward, what we had before the pre-COVID-19 days, what parts are we going to leave behind, and what parts are we going to take forward with us, and what new parts do we want to create, what new things do we want to create. And when we're thinking about this, I think we need to think very carefully about different levels. The first level, I think change of any kind, decision of any kind, first of all, starts with oneself. So the first thing you have to do is, I have to think of myself. What are some of the habits, some behaviors, some self-identity anchor points which I would like to leave behind as I move into the post-COVID era? This thing about behaviors, attitudes, my identity, this is a very long discussion. It's a very important one, but this is my 0.5 part, not the full message, because I think it needs an altogether different session if you want to discuss this. We move on to the next level. The next level, for most of us, we work as professionals, and when we work as professionals, we have an image in our minds of who we are. I would like to think not just of ourselves, but overall, what is the idea of a successful professional? Who is a successful professional? What kind of characteristics do successful professionals have? So you have the personal level and then you have the professional level. We need to think very carefully about what is that identity of a successful professional that we have developed over the last 2-3 decades. Because when you relate to a certain identity, you try to have your habits, you try to have your personality, you try to have your work routine according to that image that you have of a successful professional. And as many of my co-panelists have mentioned, there are a few things which we need to change as we move onwards. I think we're in the company of remarkable individuals here, all the people who are listening in, all the people who are on the panel. And if we can't think of this on how to change our professional identity, then who can actually do this? But that is not where our responsibility ends. I would like all of us to think of the next level. What we're talking here about is we are managers sitting here, HR managers, HR directors, CXOs sitting here. We're not just responsible for ourselves. We are responsible for creating the work culture, the work environment, the values, as Mudassir was talking about, in the organization. So what do we want to leave behind in the way work has been carried out pre-COVID-19? What do we want to take forward, and what new realities do we want to create? Over the last sort of 2 weeks or so, we've had so many sort of reports coming our way about what would the world look like afterwards. And I was going over a few things, and I have a list of things about what's being talked about: organizational readiness for remote working and sustainable strategies for work from home, virtual teams, more collaborative work across cities, across countries, guidance on how to manage remote teams, focusing on deliverables, not micromanagement, finding talent globally. We're talking here about taking remote interviews to find the global talent. And then we're talking about finding talent who's located globally so that they can work for a company. We're talking about virtual training and learning opportunities, embracing technology, redefining digital policies, policies for protection against new cybercrime risks, use of technology in HR. We're talking about all this, and my panelists have touched upon many of these points as well. What I want all of us to also reflect upon is, what is our actual intent? What is our niyat in discussing and taking these forward in our organizations? For example, are we talking about sustainability of the planet versus brutal job cutting versus work-life balance when we should talk about some of these initiatives? What my panelists were referring to as the core values, that is what we need to think of, what we stand for. Some of these initiatives can be about equal opportunities, but at the same time, they can also be about exploiting those who are weak and vulnerable. It is the same action which you're taking, but the actual reason behind taking that action is extremely important. So we need to move forward, reflect very carefully, but be very clear about our intent in moving forward and the direction that we are choosing. So that is, there's one more message, one more thing which I want to say, and that is about the current period of transition. I've so far only talked about moving forward, the new reality we want to create. This current period of transition is definitely a period of unprecedented trauma. My panelists have given some very good advice there. During this period, we have to be very responsible. We have to take care of the people for whom we are responsible. We have to make sure that we all understand the economic reality is that there are likely to be some harsh decisions. But I think the terms used by Mudassir was there, keeping a balance as much as we can. Fatima mentioned a sense of community, a sense of empathy. Sabir mentioned something like, for one of us to be happy, each one of us has to be happy. So there will be some tough decisions, but when your niyat, your intent is good, those tough decisions, you manage them in such a way that the best possible way that they can be managed. And you manage them in such a way that those who are involved in any form, any of the stakeholders in those decisions, they understand why they are being taken, and they feel the compassion, the empathy which is there. Thank you for giving this opportunity, and looking forward to the question answers.
Thank you very much, Sadia. Thank you very much for highlighting the importance of niyat and intent, and also speaking about the collective interest of the planet and the businesses as a whole. I think that is something which is paramount, and that's the only thing which might eventually rescue us from whatever we have been suffering from. Moving forward with the question and answer session, before I hand this over to Tahira, I have a few questions, and my first one is to Mr. Sabir Sami. Sabir spoke about the corporate greed, and sitting in the boardrooms, we at times witness that the quarter-on-quarter growth is, once that is ensured, only then in turn that ensures compassion for the people who are working for the organization. So are we going to see any recede in that in this new reality?
Sure, I hope so. I think there are lots of good companies that actually do the right thing, and many of them, unfortunately, doing the right thing is not news these days. And that's why I think this type of panel discussion is good, because at least you get inspired by people doing the right thing. But yeah, I mean, to your question, I hope so, because if the value of the frontline worker is not appreciated now, then I don't know what it takes to do so. But whether it does or not, time will tell. And like I said, I really don't. It's hard to predict how the human race in general and how each of us will be 2 years from now. I was having this conversation with my son last night, that 2 years from now, how will we work? And his cynical 21-year-old mindset was, oh, nothing will change, And maybe he's right, which is sad if so. But I would like to hope that, even if not everybody, but the vast majority changes, then that'll be good. But it's really hard for me to tell you whether it'll change radically or not.
Thanks. Thank you, Sabir. Thank you very much. My next question is to Mr. Musadaq Zulqarnain. Sir, you spoke a lot about the importance of plan. We need to put in place a narrative, etc. Do you have anything in mind? I'm sure a lot is being planned within your organization, and you spoke about compassion as well. So I'm sure a lot is being worked out on that front as when it comes to the well-being of 23,000 employees. But at the same time, do you have any expectations from the external stakeholders? And I'm not only talking about the government. Do you have anything in your mind related to that while we are confronting or trying to manage this new reality?
Thank you. I think it has to depend how you do business. So for us at Interloop, when we defined our mission, we really meant it, and we tried our best during all those years to follow that. That every decision we take, our suppliers, our customers, they are all, analyzed under that umbrella of our mission, which is to be an agent of positive change for the stakeholders and community by pursuing the sustainable and ethical business. So that's what we expect also. So I think we are, at least in my company, we are very fortunate in the sense that the 23,000 people, they really own this mission. They really think that it's their company. It doesn't belong to just the shareholders. Similarly, we have been very careful in selecting our customers. And I'm really very glad to report that despite all the international turmoil, despite all the retail markets being shut down, an overwhelming majority of our customers have lived up to their values. So they are doing whatever they can do. Obviously, we have to understand their issues also. If there's a retailer or a brand whose all stores are shut down and their revenue stream has usually dried up, they have also to look after their employees and their suppliers. How are they sharing the resources coming their way? So in that sense, we also understand their issues. We have been lucky. But you said, how do you plan? So obviously, taking losses is one thing. For any entity, taking losses is one thing, and having the appetite for the losses, keeping in view your values, is, I think, if you really believe in your values, then taking losses is not really a big thing. It's not really something which you cannot do. But the other thing is, do you have enough cash flow? That's where you have to plan. How do you preserve your cash? How do you ensure that the cash will keep flowing in months and years to come if this situation prolongs? And for that, we started planning when it had not even hit Pakistan. We started planning in January and December. When there was hue and cry in Pakistan that a lot of business is going to come to Pakistan because of China is shut down. We were planning how are we going to react if the market starts closing down. When USA, when they had the first cases in the Washington state up there, we started planning how do we react when something is going to hit our markets. So I think everybody has to share. The employees have to share the burden. The stakeholders, the shareholders will have to share the burden. The governments, as per their capability, will have to share the burden. The stakeholders, on the other end, because you see, if we have to survive as a community, everybody will have to take the responsibility. I don't want to take the name of any brand or any retailer, but if you're working with the top brands in the world and they need their supply chain to stay intact, they will have to also take care of their supply chain, as we will have to take care of our supply chain. The people who supply to us will have to look after them. I'll give you an example. We contract out some of the work sometimes, and when all these orders was being put on hold, we had to immediately shut down the production in-house and also to our subcontractors. we thought, are we only responsible for our own employees and our own well-being of our employees? We said, no, these people whose employees are dependent on our work, we have to take care of them. So we as a management decided that, okay, we can't, obviously pay them for what they have not done, but at least we can give them some part of their possible dues, which after the services they would have billed us, to at least take care of their employees for 2 to 3 months. So this is how the whole chain has to, take the responsibility. The employees will have to take the responsibility. My worry is, and I think that's what the important, I've also seen a question is, how do you stay solvent? Yes, you can't stay solvent if there's no work. But I think we can try as long as possible to put food on the table of my people who 20,000 of them are only workers. So if we cannot provide for the entire wages, if the work is shut down, at least give them half the wages so that they can buy food for their families. Prolong the, prolong the pandemic by lockdowns and try to, keep it within our resources. That's how you prolong the pain in a way that we lower the level of pain, but we wait for the disease to go over, the economic disease to go out, and then we recover. So this is, I think, these are the things which how we plan, and that's how we have planned, and we have communicated it very openly with our people. We have told them that it's going to be a long haul, and everybody's on board. I've seen the first day we resumed work. I want to really share this because the government allowed some of the export industry under strict SOPs to resume work to finish their pending orders. We couldn't arrange enough transport because everything was shut down, and the people were informed, and we saw people coming on their own. Nobody hid behind the excuse that the transport was not there or they were not informed. 85 to 90% people turned up. So I think that they also want to help the company. So it's a mutual thing. You have to create that confidence which will take you forward. Sorry for the long answer, but that's how I feel.
Not at all. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Because as you said, proactive communication and overall optimism, and then the trust all of the panelists have been speaking about, I think that plays a very cardinal role in creating that environment. Having said that, Tahira, do we have any questions from the audiences?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I was asking, are there any questions from the audiences?
Yes, there are a couple of questions from the audience. The first one that I would like to share and would request Mr. Nael to respond. How can organizations maintain a balance between remaining result-oriented while still being considerate towards the psychological consequences of this pandemic on employees?
Thanks for the question. This is actually been touched on by the other panelists as well, and it really, I don't think there's a very, very straight answer to this, and at least not an easy answer. The reality is that I think the first step really is to define the values that you have. Not just today, not just all of a sudden because this crisis has hit us, let's relook at our vision and mission and value statements, but really define that as a company. Whether, Interloop has done that, KFC has done that. And on that basis, you then start looking at what are the things that you need to do to, first of all, stay true to that mission and vision. There's no one answer to this. Each organization will have to act differently and will put together programs that make sense for them. You've got a situation where whether it's solvency or looking at results, etc., will continue to matter. You can't get away from that. The elements of, I'll give you, say, Singapore's example is one where the government has been dipping into our reserves because it's the right thing to do, that there are organizations and people that need support and they need long-term support. And frankly, the government has taken very, very proactive steps to make sure that industry, businesses, and especially SMEs remain afloat to whatever degree they can. Where they can't remain afloat, conversations have taken place with landlords, for example, to make sure that tenants get 3 to 4 months free rent. Any loans that people had with banks have been given, the banks have been told that these need to be stretched out and pressure not put on the organizations. That's how the balance comes in. I think, again, as I stated towards the very end, it's going to take everyone involved, organizations at the commercial level, governments, NGOs, you yourself as an actual employee, willing and able to make changes in how you live your life and lifestyle to be able to do this.
Thank you, Nael. The second important question, and that I would like to put forward to both Fatima and Sadia, and you can take it one by one, is that someone has asked that what should the fresh graduates do in this particular situation, because unemployment is going high and they are searching for jobs as well. So what the advice would be, how should they handle and navigate through this situation?
Okay, Dr. Sadia, should I take that or would you like to? All right, thank you. That's a very important concern that we have of our next generation. I feel that if we put it in the context of the demographics that the graduates are in, that's the Gen Z, maximum age is 25 years old. And they have different concerns, they have different reservations, they see the world in a different way as well. So it's not just about what jobs are available, it's also about how do we navigate in terms of what is our reality. Maybe it is a bit of the COVID situation, but it's also how they think in terms of their values, in terms of the sense of purpose they want, and also keeping in view that they are digital natives. They were born into this technological connected world, and a digitized world. So that's a very important element to keep in mind. At the same time, what my colleagues have mentioned also, Nael and Sabir also mentioned that in terms of the values that are linked to how they see the world and how they want to contribute to the world. That there is a fundamental change in how they're wired. That's a very important aspect to keep in mind, I would say, for the next generation. The second aspect is for them to understand what kind of jobs are they looking for and have they understood how the world is moving. The World Economic Forum says that the jobs that will be available in 10 years' time, in 2030, don't exist at this point in time. So are they understanding where they are wanting to go? I feel it's a very important conversation to have. It's a great responsibility from universities, from the academia to counsel their students, also to recognize that you may be graduating in a certain discipline, but your career may completely take a different trajectory. You could be an entrepreneur, you could also go into working in a tech company, but then go into social enterprise. So that's a very important aspect to navigate, that to also change the mindset and say there are possibilities out there. It is a scary time. It is very unnerving and challenging. People who are just coming into the workforce and people who have been there for many years are losing jobs all over the world, in Pakistan as well. But what we need to focus on is really the mindset of being enterprising, of being adaptable, of learning new skills as well, to be resilient and find opportunities where they did not exist before. So you may have to move away from the cookie cutter of let's just go to a multinational or let's go to more established companies. There are more opportunities available in the SME space. There are opportunities available in the social enterprise. And with the technology advent and platforms available where you can do online, that's an important aspect I just want to touch upon, even though it may not be related to this question, is about the contracting and the kind of employees that organizations are looking at. That's also very important, where you have the gig economy, you have people going on flexible terms and conditions with companies. So educating the workforce to say it's not just about 9 to 5, as Sabir said, it's not about those permanent contracts anymore. There are opportunities that are available.
Thank you, Fatima. That was, I think you've covered a lot of points, but Tahira, I'll just add a few more here. I've been talking to some students who are about to graduate, and one thing which I'm saying to them is that not all sectors have been so negatively affected. So if they're looking for jobs, they can think, one thing is that they think in terms of those sectors which may still be hiring. I think Fatima is the one, or somebody else mentioned that there are still a few sectors in which there are job opportunities, and we all know that. The other thing which I am recommending to the graduating students is that I think, just like we are meeting remotely at this point in time, if one thing this COVID-19 isolation, social distancing has taught us is that we can do a lot of work through remote links. And what it has opened up for the graduates is opportunities for jobs, not just in the local cities where they are, but there could be a lot of jobs or contracts on which they can work remotely. And I'm not just talking about within cities in Pakistan. I'm talking about global opportunities, which this is opening, may open up, is likely to open up in the future as well. On a lighter note with them, because they are my students and I interact with them. So I was saying that most of you didn't want a 9 to 5 job anyway. This is a generation who wanted the flexibility and who wanted, so I said, well, how strongly did you wish for that I don't have to go to office every day? So it is a challenge for them. We have to counsel them. We have to help them out. But with some guidance, some counseling, I think they can and they will, inshallah, find the ways. Also, what I'm suggesting to the graduates is that if the degrees did not have any electives, any courses, anything related to making them very comfortable with technology and online working. For example, if for business graduates, if there was something about digital marketing, so certain such courses can also help individuals get jobs which are more likely to increase in the future, even when everything goes back to normal. So there's just a little bit of a few additions to what Fatima said.
Thank you, Fatima and Dr. Sadia, for your advices. Definitely work. There will be more different employment models being used by employers as a way forward, and youth and graduates need to be ready for grabbing those opportunities and should not just look for at 9 to 5 jobs in the long run. Different employment models are on their way for sure. Thank you. The next question is from Musadaq Saab. There is a question that what changes do you see that employers would be required to make in their health and safety policies going forward post-COVID situation, which are going to be now a regular feature of the health and safety policies of organizations?
I think it's a good question. Obviously, for every organization, whether it's a manufacturing organization, a large organization, or a small organization, I think health and well-being of its people is extremely important. And we are responsible for their health and safety when they come for work, if they are required to come for work. So I think apart from providing the environment where they can feel safe, there are going to be new normals. I think people are going to have to wear face masks, not to protect themselves, but to protect others. I think what is more important is apart from providing the sanitizers and the hand washing facilities, I think it's the education of the people. As I also mentioned earlier, some of the people take it too easy. At least in Pakistan, people are taking it. When I come across people, educated people, they're taking it too easy. They think it's nothing. Ghabrana nahi hai. So I think you need to educate them and keep educating them that they have to take care of themselves, and we should provide them. There are going to be costs involved, let me tell you. But the question is that if we don't do it, the cost will be even higher. If your people start getting infected, if they start, you see, God forbid you have a fatality, that's a huge loss, but how much that is going to impact the morale of the company, of other people. So I think it's important that we should carefully study what type of preventive measures we should be putting in place. You might have, some of you might have read in the papers that these tunnels which have been put in place, they're actually not safe. The moment the initial SOPs included that, somebody who's a very senior chemist in our company, he immediately pointed out that how can you make people breathe these things? It's very dangerous. It's, in fact, it's not going to disinfect you. It's going to be dangerous. So we have to also keep in mind that just, you see, following a mad race is not going to help. We might have to, you see, keep testing our employees for some months to come, like the Guts Pharma started. I think that will have to come in at some time for antibody testing to see and isolate any possible cases till such time the vaccines come in. So I think these things will have to be put in place, which will cost, and without that the business will not be possible. But I think we'll have to go for those measures.
And Tahira, if I can just add one small comment to what Musadaq Saab has said, he's pointed out a very important part of the mindset that exists. It's not just about safeguarding yourself, it is about safeguarding those around you, your family, especially the elderly or people who have pre-health conditions. So it's extremely important for us, that sense of community, to take care of each other. You know, if you want to go out and contract it, unfortunately, ye hai mindset, then please then go into isolation for the next couple of months and do not expose yourself to someone else. So we must be more responsible in our thought process, and post, as the markets open up, as economies open up, we must be mindful of continuing these habits and this behavior at least for the next 12 to 18 months.
Thank you very much, Tahira. We would like to move forward with the Q&A session and come to the end of this very enlightening and very thoughtful, thought-provoking panel discussion in shape of the first HR Forums Dialogue, HRM Council of Pakistan. I think overall, I can see the undertones of this fantastic discussion. Undertones are embedded in compassion, in hope, in optimism, and I think that's very brightening, and that's really heartening as well. Change has always been there. Change is such a huge reality. So is this case. So is this pandemic. We have been exposed to change, I think, since ever. Whether we talk about wars, we talk about pandemics, we talk about technological disruptions, and we talk about, I mean, disruption is a subject now which is being taught at all the universities in the world. So I think that is one reality we should always be ready for. But yes, change is there, and we have to tackle with this change. We have to face it, and we have to face it in a way. I think crisis is one thing which brings out the best amongst the true leaders. Managing crisis is more about character rather than competence, is more about courage and optimism. And I think that's what is required. That's what is needed. And that's what all of us together should pledge to gear ourselves towards in order to manage it better, in order to move forward, and honor our heroes who are doing right now on the forefront. As Sabir said, that some of the people, rather the whole supply chain is working with the protective gear, within certain SOPs. But I think that's what we need to acknowledge. But change will always be there, not in this shape, hopefully, but in some other shape, in some other more positive shape. I think Iqbal summed it up better than anyone else when he said that sukoon mahal hai qudrat ke karkhane mein, sabat ek tagayyur ko hai zamane mein.